When I showed up at the restaurant for my parents' 30th anniversary, my family had already finished eating. My mom handed me a $1,000 bill. My sister joked, "You're our ATM." Everyone laughed, so I ripped up the bill and walked out. 3 months later, the bank called me. I thought I knew what betrayal felt like, what it meant to be used by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the sickening call from the bank that shattered my entire world and revealed the darkest truth about my own father. My name is Cassandra, and I'm 34, a freelance graphic designer navigating the rainy, bustling streets of Seattle. Punctuality is my thing usually. But that evening, I was a desperate, breathless mess, sprinting through the restaurant door, already an hour late for my parents' 30th anniversary dinner. My family? They were already finishing dessert, laughing, celebrating without me. I plastered on a smile, clutching the gift bag with the matching Apple Watches I'd splurged on, having no idea what was about to happen. From the outside, my family always looked like a picture-perfect postcard. My father, Jack, 58, the bank manager, always impeccably dressed in suits that cost more than my monthly rent. My mother, Eleanor, 56, an accountant, meticulous about numbers and even more so about appearances. Then there was my older sister, Stephanie, 38, who glided effortlessly along the golden path they laid out. Prestigious law school, partnership, at a downtown firm by 35, a perfect surgeon husband, and 2 photogenic kids in private school. And then there was me, Cassandra. The family wild card. I chose art school. I became a freelance graphic designer instead of climbing some corporate ladder. My income, let's just say, was more like a roller coaster. Sometimes a feast, sometimes a famine. But I was building a name for myself, carving out a comfortable life in my small, charming Capitol Hill apartment. Family dinners growing up were practically Stephanie's highlight reel. Straight A's, debate team victories, scholarship, offers. Meanwhile, my B+ in math would earn a disappointed sigh and the inevitable, "Why can't you be more like your sister?" My creative triumphs, winning the school art competition, getting designs featured in local exhibitions, they were just cute hobbies. "Art is wonderful, darling," my mother would say, patting my hand, "but you need something stable to fall back on." Everything shifted 3 years ago. I had an unexpected stroke of luck. I bought a lottery ticket on a whim, something I almost never do, and to my absolute shock, I won $200,000. It wasn't enough to retire, but it was life-changing. Student loans gone, a solid emergency fund, brand new top-tier equipment for my design business. I planned to keep it quiet. But during a family dinner, shortly after collecting my winnings, I made the mistake of mentioning it when my parents asked why I seemed less stressed. Instantly, the dynamic changed. I wasn't the family disappointment anymore. I was a resource. It started small. My father's car broke down. "Just a small loan," he'd said. "I'll pay you back when my year-end bonus comes." $7,000 later, the bonus came and went. No mention of repayment. When I gently brought it up, he looked wounded. "We paid for your college, Cassandra. Family helps family." Then came Stephanie's request. My niece Emma wanted to attend a prestigious summer camp. $4,000. Money that Stephanie and her surgeon husband supposedly couldn't spare from their vacation fund. "It would mean so much to her," Stephanie cooed. "And it's not like you have kids to spend on." My mother needed a kitchen renovation. My brother-in-law needed investors for a business venture. My nephew needed a new computer. With each request, the amount grew, and the pretense of repayment vanished completely. Any hesitation from me was met with guilt trips about family loyalty, or subtle reminders of how I'd just gotten lucky, while they had worked hard. The most painful part wasn't the money, it was how clearly conditional their affection had become. Before my win, I'd get obligatory birthday calls and occasional invites. After? Suddenly, I was included in weekly dinners, added to group chats, invited on family vacations that I was subtly expected to subsidize. Yet, despite opening my wallet repeatedly, I never felt truly welcomed or valued. Comments like, "Well, it's not like you have a family to support," or "At least your money is going to good use through us," were common. When I landed a major contract with a tech company, a huge professional milestone, it was completely overshadowed by my nephew's soccer trophy at the same family dinner. Still, I craved their approval, their acceptance. So, when their 30th anniversary rolled around, I saw it as a chance to reconnect. I spent weeks finding the perfect gift, matching. Apple Watches I knew they'd love but never buy themselves. I wrapped them beautifully, wrote heartfelt cards, even practiced a toast. I was determined to be early for dinner at Canlis, one of Seattle's most exclusive restaurants. I bought a new dress, a sophisticated navy blue number that cost more than I usually spent. I felt confident, hopeful. Maybe this milestone would mark a new chapter. As I left my apartment that evening, I was genuinely excited. Despite our complicated history, they were still my family. I loved them. I wanted to honor their 30 years together, to celebrate the family they had created, flaws and all. I checked myself in the mirror one last time, grabbed my keys and the gift, and headed out into what would become one of the most pivotal evenings of my adult life. What should have been a 20-minute drive turned into a nightmare. Seattle's notorious traffic exacerbated by a sudden blinding downpour. I gripped the wheel, anxiety mounting as the clock on my dash mocked me. Come on, I muttered, tapping my fingers, the line of red brake lights stretching endlessly. I was already 15 minutes late when I hit the real problem. A 3-car pileup. Traffic was completely stopped. Police lights flashed. Drivers ahead of me were turning off their engines. I tried calling my mother. No answer. My father. Straight to voicemail. Stephanie. Also voicemail. I texted the family group chat. Stuck in traffic due to accident. Will be late but on my way. Delivered but unread. By the time I finally burst through the restaurant door, nearly an hour late, my hair frizzed from the rain despite my umbrella, the hostess gave me a sympathetic smile. The Williams party? Lakeside private room? They've already been served the main course. My heart sank. As I entered the elegant private dining room, it felt like walking into a party I hadn't been invited to. Everyone was there. My parents, Stephanie and Daniel, my niece and nephew, even Aunt Patricia. 8 places had been set, one for me, but no one had waited. They were all laughing at something my brother-in-law had said, forks clinking against plates of nearly finished dessert. My father was pouring more wine. For several long seconds, no one even noticed me standing in the doorway. My nephew spotted me first. "Oh, Aunt Cassie's here," he said, barely looking up from his chocolate cake. Heads turned. My mother's laughter vanished, replaced by a cool acknowledgement. "Well, look who finally decided to join us. We thought you might not come. At all. No, glad you made it. No, we were worried." Just a subtle accusation that cut deeper than any outright criticism. "There was an accident on Aurora," I explained, still clutching my gift bag. I tried calling everyone. "We were enjoying ourselves," my sister said with a shrug. "Phones away during family dinner. Remember Dad's rule?" A rule, I knew, that only applied when convenient. I'd seen Stephanie checking work emails during countless family meals. My father waved a hand at the empty chair. "Sit down. We'll see if the kitchen can make you something quickly." I slid into the seat, noticing the empty bread basket and water glasses around me. No one had saved me appetizers. No one had thought to order for me, despite knowing exactly what I always got here, their famous truffle pasta. "No need to trouble the kitchen," I said, forcing a smile. "I'm just glad to be here for the celebration." I pulled out the beautifully wrapped gift. "Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. 30 years is an amazing accomplishment." My mother took the box with a polite thank you and set it aside without opening it. "Shouldn't we open Cassandra's gift?" my aunt suggested after an awkward pause. "Oh, of course," my mother said, as if it had simply slipped her mind. She unwrapped it. When she opened the box to reveal the 2 Apple Watches, there was a brief flash of genuine appreciation. "These are very nice," my father commented. "They're the newest models," I explained eagerly. "I even got them engraved with your wedding date and set up your favorite fitness app, since you both mentioned wanting to be more active." "That's thoughtful," my mother said, but quickly closed the box and set it aside. Neither of them tried them on. The moment passed so quickly I wondered if I'd imagined their brief interest. "Wait until you see what Stephanie and Daniel got them," my niece piped up. At 11, Emma had already perfected her mother's talent for redirecting attention. Stephanie smiled smugly, handing our parents an envelope. Inside, documents for a week-long, all-expenses-paid trip to Hawaii, first-class airfare, beachfront suite at the Four Seasons. "We know how much you both love." "Maui," Stephanie beamed, "and you deserve to be pampered." The reaction was immediate, effusive. My mother actually teared up, getting up to hug Stephanie and Daniel. My father clapped his son-in-law on the shoulder with a hearty, "This is incredible, son." For the next 15 minutes, conversation revolved entirely around Hawaii. My gift sat forgotten, not even mentioned. "That's the difference between having a real career and just doing freelance work," my sister's husband muttered, probably thinking. He was being quiet, but his voice carried. "When you make real money, you can do real gifts." No one contradicted him. No one defended me. My mother simply nodded in agreement, showing my aunt resort photos on her phone. I sat silently, picking at the chocolate mousse someone had belatedly thought to offer me. It tasted like ashes. As the Hawaii excitement finally began to wane, my mother reached for her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. At first, I thought it was a card or photo. I was wrong. "Before I forget," she said, her voice taking on a practical tone that immediately put me on edge. She unfolded what I now saw was a restaurant bill, smoothing it flat against the white tablecloth. "We need to settle the dinner check." My father nodded. "Quite a celebration we've had." I glanced at the bill. My eyes widened. $1,000. For 8 people, even at Canlis, it seemed excessive. "We reserved the private room and ordered the premium wine pairing," my mother explained, noticing my expression. "And of course, we had to order the full tasting menu for everyone." Then she did something that left me momentarily speechless. She slid the bill across the table directly to me. "We thought you might like to take care of this, Cassandra," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Since you missed most of the dinner, it would be a nice way for you to contribute to the celebration." I stared at the bill, then back at my mother, waiting for someone to laugh and say it was a joke. No one did. Instead, an expectant silence filled the table. "You want me to pay for a dinner I barely attended?" I finally managed to ask, my voice smaller than I intended. "Well, we did reserve a spot for you," my father pointed out, as if that explained everything. "The restaurant charges by the person, and we had to pay for your place setting even though you were late. Plus, it's not like you have other expenses," my mother added. "No children to feed, no mortgage." Before I could respond, Stephanie let out a short, sharp laugh. "Oh, come on, Cassie. Don't act so surprised. You've always been our family. ATM since you won that money. Why stop now?" The table erupted in laughter. Even my niece and nephew joined in, though I doubted they fully understood the joke. My brother-in-law raised his wine glass in a mock toast. "To Cassandra's good fortune, which we all get to enjoy." More laughter, more clinking glasses. I sat frozen, the $1,000 bill blurring as I fought back tears. 3 years of similar moments flashed through my mind. The loans never repaid, the gifts I was expected to provide, the vacations I had subsidized. Each request had been dressed up as a special circumstance, a one-time need, a family obligation. But Stephanie's casual comment had stripped away the pretense, revealing the brutal truth. I had been nothing but a convenience. I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was a source of funds. "Remember when she paid for Emma's entire summer camp without even hesitating?" My mother reminisced, as if I weren't sitting right there. $8,000 for 6 weeks. "And the new roof for the lake house last year," my father added. "That was what, $15,000? $22,000, I corrected quietly, but no one seemed to hear me. "Oh, and remember Christmas?" Stephanie continued, warming to the theme. "When she got everyone those ridiculously expensive gifts and all we had for her was that scarf from Nordstrom Rack?" My aunt, at least, had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Perhaps we should change the subject," she suggested. But my mother waved her concern away. Oh, Cassandra knows we're just teasing. She's happy to help the family. Right, dear? All eyes turned to me, expectantly, not with gratitude or affection, but with entitled anticipation. I could see it clearly now. They were waiting for me to play my assigned role, the golden goose, the family ATM. I looked down at the $1,000 bill again, seeing it not just as a dinner check, but as a symbol of our entire relationship. They had been dining out on my generosity, both literally and figuratively, for years. And for what? Not for love, or respect, or true inclusion, just for what I could provide. The realization hit me with physical force, like a punch to the chest. I had been buying their affection, and they had been selling me a counterfeit version of family love. Is that what I am to all of you? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Just an ATM? There was an awkward pause before my father attempted damage control. Now, Cassandra, no one thinks of you that way. We're family. We support each other. Support each other? I repeated. When was the last time any of you supported me? When I landed the Microsoft contract last year, did anyone even remember to congratulate me the next day? When I was sick with pneumonia last winter, did anyone bring me soup or check on me? Silence descended over the table. My mother fidgeted with her napkin. My sister suddenly became fascinated with her wine glass. I thought so, I said softly. It only goes one way, doesn't it? My brother-in-law cleared his throat. Look, if you're having money problems, just say so. No need to make a scene. That comment, with its complete, infuriating misunderstanding of my point, was the final, devastating straw. I wasn't angry about the money itself. I was heartbroken about what it represented. A family that valued me only for what I could give them, not for who I was. The silence stretched for what felt like minutes. Everyone's eyes were on me, waiting. Would I back down, as I always had? Would I write the check with a forced smile, just to keep the peace? In that moment, something shifted inside me. A lifetime of seeking approval, of trying to earn love through generosity, of accepting scraps of affection in return for substantial financial support. It all crystallized into a single clarifying thought. I deserved better than this. With deliberate calm, I picked up the $1,000 bill. My mother's expression relaxed slightly, assuming I was about to reach for my purse. Instead, I held the paper between both hands and slowly, methodically, began to tear it into pieces. The sound of ripping paper cut through the silence like a knife, first in half, then quarters, then smaller and smaller, until confetti-sized pieces fluttered onto the pristine white tablecloth. My mother gasped. Cassandra, what do you think you're doing? Have you lost your mind? My father demanded, his face flushing with anger. That bill needs to be paid. Then pay it yourselves, I replied, my voice steady and clear. I am done being the family bank. I stood up, smoothing down my new dress, my hands surprisingly steady despite my racing heart. For 3 years, I have given and given. Money for renovations, money for vacations, money for cars and camps and college funds. Did any of you ever say thank you? Did anyone ever offer to pay me back? Did anyone even acknowledge that these were not obligations, but gifts from someone who hoped it might make you finally see her as worthy of your love? My sister rolled her eyes. Oh, please, don't be so dramatic. We're family. Of course, we love you. Do you, Stephanie? I challenged her. When was the last time you called me just to talk? Not to ask for something? When was the last time any of you showed interest in my life, my work, my achievements? We are busy people, my mother said defensively. We have responsibilities, careers, children. And I don't, I countered. My time, my work, my life is less valuable because I chose a different path. I have supported this family financially for years. I helped pay for Emma's braces when your insurance wouldn't cover the full amount. I covered the deposit when Dad's car broke down. I bought you that diamond bracelet for your birthday last year, Mom, the one you're wearing right now. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to make you happy. My mother's hand instinctively went to the $14,000 tennis bracelet on her wrist, a gift I'd saved for months to buy her. If we are truly family, if we truly support each other, then why am I the only one giving? Why is my worth to this family measured only by what I can provide financially? My nephew looked confused. But Aunt Cassie, you have all that lottery. Money. You're rich. I was never rich, Charlie, I said gently. $200,000 is a lot, but it's not unlimited wealth, and most of what I had left went to all of you. My father's expression shifted from anger to cold calculation. If you are having money problems, you should have said something. We could have been more considerate. That response told me everything. Not we value you regardless of money. But we would have asked for less if we knew the well was running dry. This is not about whether I can afford it, I said, picking up my purse. This is about respect, about being valued for who I am, not what I can give. And clearly, that is not happening here. My sister scoffed. You're being ridiculously sensitive. It was just a joke about the ATM thing. Was it, Stephanie? I asked, looking her dead in the eye. Because from where I'm standing, it feels like the most honest anyone has been with me in years. I reached into my wallet, pulled out $300 in cash, more than covering my portion of the meal had I actually been there to eat it, and placed it on the table. This covers my share. The rest is on all of you. Consider it the first boundary. Of many I will be setting from now on. My mother's face crumpled in what looked like genuine distress. Cassandra, please, it's our anniversary. Don't ruin this special night. For a moment, I felt the familiar pull of guilt, the ingrained need to please, to make peace. But then I remembered how they had started dinner without me, how they had dismissed my gift, how they had laughed at my expense. I think the night was ruined long before I got here, I said quietly. Happy anniversary. I hope the next 30 years bring you wisdom to match your longevity. With that, I turned and walked toward the door. My father called after me, his voice sharp with authority. Cassandra Williams, you get back here right now. We are not finished discussing this. I paused at the doorway, looking back one last time at the family tableau. My parents' angry faces, my sister's contemptuous eye roll, my brother-in-law's smirk, my niece and nephew's confusion, my aunt and uncle's uncomfortable silence. Actually, Dad, I replied, I think we are. And then I walked out. Each step felt simultaneously like the heaviest and lightest movement of my life. Heavy with the finality of what had just happened. Light with a sudden, unexpected liberation of speaking my truth. As I drove home through the rain-slicked streets of Seattle, tears streamed down my face. But they weren't entirely tears of sadness. There was relief there, too. And something else I hadn't felt in a long time when thinking about my family. Pride. Pride in finally standing up for myself, in refusing to be defined by their limited perception of my worth. By the time I reached my apartment, I felt both emotionally drained and strangely energized. I kicked off my heels, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat by the window, watching the city lights shimmer through the rain. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen by my family, even if what they saw was someone they couldn't manipulate anymore. I raised my glass in a solitary toast. To boundaries, I whispered to the empty room, and to whatever comes next. The 3 months following that fateful anniversary dinner were the most difficult, and yet the most transformative of my adult life. I maintained complete radio silence with my family. It was simultaneously painful and liberating. The first few weeks were agony, filled with moments of doubt and waves of guilt that would wash over me, usually late at night when my defenses were down. Had I overreacted? Was tearing up the bill childish? Should I have handled things differently? These questions plagued me, along with the deeply ingrained belief that turning away from family, no matter how toxic, was fundamentally wrong. My phone became a source of both anxiety and disappointment. Sometimes it would light up with texts or calls from my parents or Stephanie, and my heart would race with hope. Perhaps an apology, an acknowledgement, a desire to make amends, but each message followed the same pattern. No recognition of what had happened, no accountability, just attempts to pull me back into the old dynamic. My mother. Your father and I are considering renovating the lake house kitchen. Since you have such good taste, we thought you might want to contribute to the new appliances. Call me back. From Stephanie. Emma's birthday is next month. She wants that expensive drawing tablet, the one you mentioned once. I told her you'd probably get it for her. Let me know. From my father. The Hawaii trip is coming up. Your mother thought you might want to send us some spending money as an anniversary gift since you ruined the dinner. Think about it. Each message confirmed I'd made the right decision. Yet, they still stung. They showed me just how deeply entrenched the pattern was. How my family saw me primarily as a resource rather than a person with feelings and boundaries. Instead of sinking into isolation, I channeled my energy. I took on new design projects. That challenged me creatively, pushing myself to grow professionally in ways I'd been too emotionally drained to attempt before. I joined a local art collective where I met other creative professionals who genuinely valued my input and respected my work. Most importantly, I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Leanne Matthews, who specialized in family dynamics and boundary setting. Our weekly sessions became an anchor in my new reality, a safe space to unpack decades of emotional manipulation and conditional love. What you are experiencing is grief, Dr. Matthews explained during one particularly difficult session. Not just for the relationship you have lost, but for the relationship you never had and always wanted. Those words hit home in a profound way. I was mourning the family I had always hoped we could be, the love I had tried to buy but could never truly obtain. Family relationships shouldn't be transactional, she continued. Genuine love doesn't come with a price tag. We worked together on exercises to help me recognize my own worth independent of external validation, to understand that setting boundaries was not selfish, but necessary for healthy relationships. I learned to identify the difference between guilt as a manipulation tool and genuine remorse as a catalyst for change. My mother's voicemails veered between guilt tripping, "I can't believe you would treat your own mother this way after all I've done for you," and angry accusations, "You always were the selfish one, even as a child." Our side, my sister's tactics were more direct. "You're being ridiculous, Cassie, so we made a few jokes about money. Get over yourself and grow up." Not once did any of them say, "I'm sorry," or "I miss you," or "What can we do to make this right?" Their concern seemed focused entirely on the loss of what I could give them, not the loss of me as a person they loved. Around this time, I met Grace Chen at one of the art collective's community events. She was a photographer who had recently moved to Seattle from Chicago, and we bonded over shared creative frustrations and midnight coffee. When I cautiously shared some of what I was going through with my family, expecting the usual platitudes about blood being thicker than water, her response surprised me. "My parents tried to control me through money for years," she said matter-of-factly. "They paid for my college on the condition that I studied business instead of photography. When I finally changed my major in junior year, they cut me off completely. No warning, no discussion, just financial abandonment." "What did you do?" I asked, amazed by her calm recounting of something so painful. "I got 3 jobs, took out loans, and finished my degree," she replied. "It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most important. It taught me that their money was never support, it was control." Grace became a crucial part of my support system. Someone who understood firsthand the complicated intersection of family and finances. Unlike well-meaning friends who would insist, "But they're your family." As if that excused all behavior, Grace recognized the difference between healthy family bonds and emotional manipulation. "The question is not whether you should forgive them," she told me. "The question is, what would that forgiveness look like? Does it mean going back to the way things were, or creating something new with clear boundaries?" Her perspective helped me see my situation with greater clarity. I didn't have to choose between cutting my family off forever or returning to being their financial safety net. There was potential for a middle path, but it would require them to recognize the problem and be willing to change. As the weeks passed, I found myself growing stronger and more centered. The guilt that had initially consumed me began to recede, replaced by a quiet confidence in my decision. I started sleeping better, waking without the immediate weight of family obligation pressing on my chest. I rediscovered old passions I had abandoned, took a ceramics class, went hiking with new friends, and even started dating again. My life was becoming my own in a way it never had before, shaped by my choices rather than by the expectations and demands of others. There was loneliness sometimes, particularly during holidays or when I would see families laughing together, in restaurants or parks. But it was a clean loneliness, uncomplicated by manipulation or conditional acceptance. By the third month of my self-imposed family exile, the constant barrage of calls and texts had slowed to a trickle. Perhaps they had finally accepted that I was serious. Or perhaps they had simply found other sources of financial support. Whatever the reason, I was grateful for the respite, for the chance to continue healing without the constant reopening of the wound. And then, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, as I sat at my desk working on a brand design for a new client, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Little did I know that this call would force me to confront my family situation in a way I never could have anticipated. "Is this Cassandra Williams?" The voice on the other end was professional, with a note of gravity that immediately put me on alert. "Yes, this is she," I replied cautiously, saving my design work and giving the call my full attention. "This is Thomas Brennan, Senior Credit Manager at First Security Bank. I need to speak with you regarding some unusual activity on your accounts. Do you have a few minutes to discuss this matter privately?" My stomach dropped. Had I been hacked? With all the other stress in my life, financial fraud was the last thing I needed. "Yes, of course," I said, moving from my desk to the living room sofa for comfort during what I suspected would be a stressful conversation. "What kind of unusual activity are we talking about?" There was a brief pause before Mr. Brennan continued. "Miss Williams, our fraud detection system flagged an attempt to open a new credit account in your name. The application was submitted last Thursday with your social security number, date of birth, and other personal information, but certain discrepancies triggered our security protocols. I have not applied for any new credit accounts," I confirmed, my anxiety rising. Was someone trying to steal my identity? "That appears to be the case," he replied. "However, this situation is somewhat delicate. Our investigation indicates that the application was submitted by someone you know. The primary applicant was listed as Jack Williams, with you as a co-authorized user. But the signature purporting to be yours failed our verification process." The room seemed to tilt sideways as the implication of his words sank in. "Jack Williams. That's my father." "Yes," Mr. Brennan confirmed, his tone softening slightly. "I am sorry to be the bearer of this news, Miss Williams, but it appears that your father attempted to open a joint credit line with a $25,000 limit using your personal information without your authorization. When we called the contact number on the application to verify some details, the individual identifying himself as Jack Williams became agitated and insisted the application was legitimate." I pressed my fingertips against my closed eyelids, trying to process this information. My own father had attempted to commit identity theft against me. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. "The application included copies of what appeared to be your driver's license and social security card," Mr. Brennan continued. "May I ask if you have provided these documents to your father recently, or if he would have access to them?" I thought back to the last time I had visited my parents' home, months before the anniversary dinner. I had needed to complete some insurance paperwork and had brought my document folder with me, leaving it briefly unattended in the study while I helped my mother in the kitchen. Had my father taken that opportunity to make copies? The thought made me physically ill. "No," I said firmly. "I did not provide those documents or authorize him to use my information in any way." Mr. Brennan's voice took on a more formal tone. "Miss Williams, I need to inform you that what your father attempted constitutes identity theft, which is a criminal offense. As the potential victim, you have several options. We have already flagged this as fraudulent in our system and denied the application. But you may wish to file a police report, particularly to protect yourself from any further attempts." "Has he done this before?" I asked, suddenly wondering if this was the first attempt, or merely the first time he had been caught. There was a telling pause. "I cannot discuss specific details of other applications due to privacy regulations," Mr. Brennan said carefully. "However, I can tell you that our system shows previous credit inquiries in your name from several different financial institutions over the past 2 months. The implications were clear. This was not a one-time desperate act, but a pattern of behavior. My father had been systematically trying to use my identity to access credit, likely since I had cut off contact after the anniversary dinner. What do I need to do to protect myself? I asked, reaching for a notepad. Mr. Brennan was thorough and compassionate as he outlined the steps. Place a fraud alert on my credit reports, consider a credit freeze, monitor my accounts closely, change passwords, and consider filing a police report. He even offered to connect me with the bank's identity theft response team for additional support. As we neared the end of the conversation, he hesitated before adding, "Miss Williams, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but we see these situations more often than people realize when they involve family members. They can be particularly complicated emotionally. Please do not hesitate to reach out if you need any assistance navigating this process." After thanking him and ending the call, I sat motionless on my sofa, the notepad of security steps clutched in my hand. The afternoon sun streamed through my windows, casting everything in a golden light that felt at odds with the darkness of what I had just learned. My own father had not just tried to take advantage of my generosity. He had crossed the line into criminal behavior. Had he always seen me this way, as a resource to be exploited? Was there ever genuine love there? Or had it always been conditional? I thought about the potential consequences of filing a police report. My father could face criminal charges. It could tear what remained of my family apart. Yet, not filing a report left me vulnerable to future attempts and sent the message that his behavior was somehow acceptable. The hardest part was acknowledging that this was not a momentary lapse in judgment. The multiple credit inquiries Mr. Brennan had alluded to suggested a calculated, ongoing effort. This realization transformed my pain into something sharper, more defined. This was not just about money anymore. It was about a fundamental breach of trust from someone who should have protected me. I picked up my phone again, not to call the police, but to call Dr. Matthews. I needed guidance before making such a significant decision. As the phone rang, I looked at the collection of family photos I still had displayed on my bookshelf. Holidays, graduations, vacations, moments that I had treasured as evidence of family bonds that now seemed as fraudulent as my father's credit application. Whatever decision I made next would irrevocably change those relationships. There would be no going back to pretending everything was normal. No sweeping this under the rug with an awkward apology at Thanksgiving dinner. The thought was both terrifying and strangely freeing. My therapist answered on the third ring. "Dr. Matthews speaking." "It's Cassandra," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Something has happened with my father, and I need to talk through my options." As I began to explain the situation, I realized I was entering yet another phase of this painful journey with my family. But for the first time, I was approaching it with clear eyes, free from the fog of guilt and obligation that had clouded my judgment for so long. After lengthy discussions with Dr. Matthews and careful consideration of all my options, I made a decision that honored both my need for self-protection and my complicated feelings about my family. I would not file criminal charges against my father, but I would take every other possible measure to protect myself and establish unbreakable boundaries. I started by putting a complete freeze on my credit at all 3 major bureaus, making it impossible for anyone, including my father, to open new accounts in my name. I changed all my passwords, set up fraud alerts, and even went so far as to have my mail delivered to a private post office box rather than my apartment. Then came the hardest part, confronting my family with what I knew. Rather than calling or meeting in person, which would have given them the opportunity to manipulate the narrative through tears or accusations, I wrote a detailed email and sent it to my parents, my sister, and my aunt and uncle, laying out exactly what had happened. "I have recently discovered that Dad attempted to commit identity theft by opening credit accounts in my name without my knowledge or consent," I wrote. "This is not only a profound betrayal of trust, but also a criminal act. While I have chosen not to press charges out of consideration for our family, I want everyone to understand that this crosses a line that cannot be uncrossed. I am implementing complete financial protection measures, and will have no further contact with anyone who minimizes, excuses, or enables this behavior. The responses came quickly and followed predictable patterns. My father sent no reply at Trey. All. My sister responded with defensive anger, accusing me of exaggerating and attempting to destroy the family over a simple misunderstanding. My aunt expressed shock and sympathy, but urged reconciliation for the sake of family harmony. My mother's response, however, was unexpected. 3 days after my email, she called. I nearly didn't answer, but something told me to take the call. Cassandra? Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered, lacking its usual authoritative tone. Can we meet? Just you and me, please? Against my better judgment and Dr. Matthews's cautious advice, I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop near my apartment, a public place where I could leave easily if things went south. I arrived early, choosing a table with a clear path to the exit, and ordered a latte that I was too nervous to drink. When my mother walked in, I was struck by how much she had aged in just 3 months. Her typically immaculate appearance seemed slightly disheveled, her posture less confident. She spotted me and made her way over, hesitating before sitting down opposite me. Thank you for meeting me, she began, folding and unfolding a napkin nervously. I know you have every reason to refuse. I waited silently, determined not to make this easier for her. What your father did was wrong, she said, finally meeting my eyes directly. I want you to know that I had no idea he was doing this. I would never have condoned it. But you condoned treating me like a bank account for years, I replied evenly. You participated in it, encouraged it, laughed about it at the anniversary dinner. She flinched at the reminder but did not deny it. Yes, she admitted softly. I did. We all did. And I'm sorry, Cassandra. Truly sorry. The apology I had waited years to hear almost didn't register at first. I had become so accustomed to excuses and deflections that sincerity caught me off guard. Your father has a problem, she continued. He has been gambling for years, something I tried to ignore because it was easier than confronting it. The nice lifestyle, the renovations, the vacations, all of it has been built on sand. We are deeply in debt, have been for years, and it has only gotten worse since you stopped helping. Helping? I repeated. Is that what you call it when you treat your daughter like an ATM? She winced. You're right to be angry. We took advantage of your generosity and love. When you won that money, we saw it as a solution to our problems rather than what it actually was, your opportunity for financial security. As my mother continued to talk, a fuller picture emerged. My father's gambling had spiraled out of control. They had remortgaged the house twice. Credit cards were maxed out. The successful image they had maintained, the one I had always felt pressured to live up to, was a complete facade. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Are you hoping I'll bail you out again? She shook her head firmly. No, I'm telling you because you deserve the truth, and because I want to apologize for how we have treated you. Not just recently, but for years. We measured your worth by the wrong metrics, Cassandra. We failed to see and appreciate the amazing woman you have become. Tears formed in her eyes, but unlike the performative emotion I had seen so often in the past, these seemed genuine. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that I am getting help. I have joined a support group for families affected by gambling addiction, and I'm learning a lot about codependency and enabling. I'm trying to convince your father to get help too, but he's not ready yet. And Stephanie? I asked. Does she know about all this? I tried to talk to her. My mother sighed. She doesn't want to hear it. She has built her life around the same illusions we created. Acknowledging the truth would mean facing some uncomfortable realities about herself and her choices. We talked for nearly 2 hours that afternoon, not just about the recent events, but about patterns that had been established throughout my childhood. The constant comparisons, the conditional approval, the emphasis on appearance over substance. For the first time, my mother listened more than she spoke. And when she did speak, it was without the defensive justifications I had come to expect. Before we parted, I made my position clear. I am willing to have a relationship with you, Mom, but it will be different from before. I will not provide financial support of any kind. That boundary is non-negotiable, and I need time and space to see if the changes you are describing are real and lasting." She nodded, accepting these terms without argument. "I understand." "And your father, I cannot have any contact with him right now," I said firmly. "What he did was not just hurtful, it was criminal. He violated my trust in a fundamental way. Maybe someday, if he gets help and makes amends, that might change, but not now." The months that followed were a gradual process of rebuilding on new foundations. I maintained my boundaries firmly, but allowed my mother limited contact through weekly phone calls. I helped her find resources for financial counseling and support groups, but made it clear that I would not be contributing to their financial recovery. That was a journey they needed to make on their own. My sister eventually reached out after our mother's intervention, though her version of an apology left much to be desired. "I still think you overreacted," she said, "but maybe we were a bit thoughtless about the money stuff." It was a start, if a small one. A year after the anniversary dinner that had changed everything, I found myself in a different place, both literally and figuratively. I had moved to a new apartment in a different neighborhood, expanded my design business to include more fulfilling creative projects, and built a circle of friends who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. My relationship with my family remained complicated. My father eventually entered treatment for his gambling addiction, and while I maintained my distance, I did not stand in the way of his recovery. My mother and I established a more honest relationship, though the closeness we had once shared remained elusive. Stephanie and I settled into a cordial but distant dynamic, connecting mainly through occasional texts and obligatory holiday wishes. The most profound change, however, was within myself. I had learned to value my own worth independent of others' validation. I had discovered that setting boundaries was not an act of cruelty, but an act of self-respect. I had found that family could be defined by choice and quality of connection rather than merely by blood. On the anniversary of that fateful dinner, I took myself out to a nice restaurant, sat at a table for one, and ordered exactly what I wanted. As I raised a glass of champagne in a solitary toast, I reflected on the painful but necessary journey of the past year and the wisdom it had brought me. True love, I had learned, never comes with a price tag. It cannot be bought or sold. It exists in the respect we show for each other's autonomy, in the support we offer without expectation of return, in the joy we take in each other's authentic self-expression. Money may buy influence, compliance, or the appearance of affection, but it cannot purchase genuine love or respect. I had also discovered that sometimes the healthiest love we can offer both to ourselves and others is the courage to say no to harmful patterns. Setting boundaries is not about punishment, but about creating space for healthier relationships to potentially grow. And perhaps most importantly, I had learned that my value was inherent, not earned through achievement or financial provision, or conformity to others' expectations. I was enough just as I was. As I finished my meal and prepared to head home, I thought about how I would end this chapter of my story. Not with bitterness over what had been lost, but with gratitude for what had been gained, self-knowledge, authentic connections, and the freedom to write the next chapters on my own terms. If you have ever struggled with family expectations or felt valued only for what you could provide rather than who you are, I hope my story helps you recognize that you deserve more. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for healthy relationships. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with loved ones? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more stories of personal growth through challenging circumstances, and share with someone who might need to hear that their worth is not determined by what they give, but by who they are. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is learning to love yourself first.